Boeing. Here's a neutral view on their financials, what they actually do, and their strengths and weaknesses. By the way, this is all based off of their annual report and quarterly filings. Boeing used to be the king of safety, but the 737 MAX kind of took away that crown. They chose profits over making good quality planes. By the way, guys, full disclosure, I did buy Boeing stock. This was like right after the Alaska incident, and my thought process was like, hey, they've gone through a lot of bad news now, so it can't be worse. So I bought it. And then after that, I realized like, hey, this can't be my thought process when I'm buying a stock. I need to read something. So that's why I made this channel, to kind of condense annual report into a video. All right, guys, let's get into it. First, let's cover the top and bottom line. They were making pretty steady money, but then in 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed. Then in 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed. That resulted in a lot of canceled orders, and COVID was of no help. Moving on to net income, the numbers were pretty strong at the start. But with the information we know now, we do have to ask the question, at what cost? Whenever a plane is grounded, Boeing doesn't just pay concessions to the airline. So that adds up. It's quite a lot of money, and the COVID pandemic was definitely of no help. Over the years, they've lost a lot of ground to Airbus, and rightly so. If plane after plane crashes and has incident after incident, people eventually determine that you're not as reliable. I don't want to be too harsh on them because building planes is kind of difficult. And just to be clear and clear up any expectations that you may have in me, I can't build one. Boeing is tasked with making a giant tube that flies 30,000 feet in the air, 600 miles per hour for hours at a time. Very complicated stuff. But do not let that distract you from the fact that they definitely chose profits over making good quality planes. And I'm going to get into why they thought they could get away with that right after the stock data. They grew substantially before the pandemic, but they had a massive drop. Airbus did recover, but Boeing did have a much harder time. It ended up with Boeing at 33%, the S&P 500 index at 150%, and Airbus in first place with 174%. So to answer the question of why they chose money over making good quality planes, it was quite simply because they could. There isn't really much competition, and Airbus, their only real competitor, is already at capacity. In 2023, Boeing made 528 planes. That's a lot of planes. Commercial airlines cost millions to make, and there are not really that many companies that can make them. Join me in this little thought experiment. Let's say you want to start up a new plane company. What do you have to do? Well, first, you have to get some designs. Then, you have to build the factories to actually make the planes in. Then, you have to actually build the plane, and then make it at scale, because you can't just make one, because that would never pay for itself. Those planes would be completely untested, and would consumers really consider that plane to be safe? Because don't get me wrong, while trust in Boeing is down a lot, I feel like people trust Boeing a lot more than a random company. If you guys want a real world example, China started a company called Comac, a plane manufacturing company. They started in 2008, and they've invested between $49 and $72 billion worth of aid. They still are not there yet. I mean, partially because of the trade war between US and China, so they can't obtain parts, but still, they've invested billions of dollars and not exactly there. That leaves Boeing's only real competition to be Airbus, and they're getting a lot of orders. For example, in my Delta video, shameless plug, they received 225 orders out of the 325 orders that Delta has out for planes. Boeing only gets the other 100. Anyway, let's take a break from the commercial aviation segment and move on to the other segments, which are Boeing Defense, Space and Security, and Boeing Global Services. BDS, Boeing Defense, Space and Security, made $25 billion in revenue this year. They make the Apache helicopters, F-15s, F-18s, and also the KC-46 tankers. A lot of planes for the US military. I'm going to compare the years 21 to 2022, and then 2022 to 2023. So from 21 to 22, there were what they call unfavorable impacts of cumulative contract catch-up adjustments. In English, let's say you and another person sign a contract to build a house for $1 million over 1 year. Instead of taking 1 year, it takes 2 years. On year end, you're still going to have to pay for all the people who work on the house and also for the rented equipment. But you're still going to get only $1 million from the person who actually commissioned it. From 2022 to 2023, it's basically the same thing, but they just lost a little less money. BGS, Boeing Global Services, is basically parts, maintenance, training, analytics for both government and businesses. For example, maintenance on a plane to either extend or maintain its useful life. 50% of the revenue is the US government. They're expecting this part to be kind of flat over the next few years and expecting a lot of growth internationally. In earnings, this segment made $2.7 billion in 2019, $450 million in 2020, and $2 billion in 2021. Maintenance is kind of necessary, so this segment it doesn't really fluctuate as much as the others did. All right, let's go back to the Boeing commercial aviation segment. I'm gonna list out a lot of the planes. Get ready for a lot of sevens. First of all, the 737. They're making around 38 of these every single month, and this is their problem child, but also their flagship model. The FAA is looking pretty closely at them. They're now not grounded, so they're able to fly, but the FAA has decided to not allow increases in production because the planes are sketchy at the moment. And good, because I'm not exactly interested in just dying on a plane out of nowhere. The 747, which had its last delivery in February of 2023, is now discontinued. The 767, which is a big boy, they're looking to phase that out, but they're currently making around 3 a month. They're making 4 of the 777 every single month, and in development they have the 737 MAX 7 and MAX 10 models. Let's hope that they do good. They also have the 777X in development. It's expected to come out between 2025 and 2026, and I gotta say, cool name. Across all their segments, they have a pretty big backlog of orders. Take a look. Because although Boeing's reputation is pretty bad right now, their planes aren't exactly garbage. Their airplanes are still in demand, and airplanes in general are still needed. In fact, 78% of their backlog is for non-US customers, so they expect a lot of just demand internationally. And as for Airbus, they have a backlog even bigger than Boeing. They have a backlog of 8.6 thousand aircraft. Not Cessnas, by the way, these $100 million planes. Let's move on to SWOT, starting off with strengths. They're one of only 2 real aircraft manufacturers. In addition, the maintenance is always going to be required, and they're pretty well diversified among both military and just commercial use for aircraft. Weaknesses wise, they are quite reliant on US government contracts, and their reputation isn't exactly great. The 737 MAX, while it does sell a lot, not exactly known for being the most reliable plane. Boeing isn't really known for having a robust culture of safety, and their long-term debt picked up over the pandemic. Before, they were at 10 to 11 billion. At the peak, they were at 62 billion, and now as of Q1 2024, they're at $47 billion worth of long-term debt. Opportunities-wise, they can definitely take back their reputation of being the safest airplane, but that's going to take a lot of time. In addition, maybe space can also become something in the future, but it's still far too early to tell. Threats-wise, if more incidents, let's call them, happen, that's not exactly going to be good for Boeing. And if more customers continue to move from Boeing to Airbus, that's not exactly going to be great either. Anyway guys, that's a rundown on Boeing. Let me know about your guys' opinions on the Boeing and Airbus duopoly. This is not investment advice. If you want that, check out a reputable source like the SEC or talk to a financial professional. And like, sub, peace people.